Are rolling. We are rolling indeed. Mouloukou, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been long anticipated.
Yeah, we have had this one in the works for a while. Yeah, it's good we're finally here. Because you have quite a story, your background and your journey. Maybe you want to walk people through actually some of your achievements, some of the things that you've done over the last few years.
Thank you so much. It's like I still believe that we're still at the very beginning of the journey. But yes, my name is Mouloukou Sanoh. I started my career working for a very small tech investment bank in Hong Kong called the AIDAverse Ventures Group. We did a lot of the early crypto deals. We helped Animoca raise funding. We worked on the Telegram deal that was canceled by the SEC. And we also started a few companies. One of which is Aspen Digital that eventually got backed by Rothschilds. I then went to work in private equity. Afterwards, I did two things. I ran which was at the time the largest investment fund dedicated to Web3 on the African continent called AIDAverse. It was $100 million fund. We were backed by Cardano, and at the same time, we had raised $9 million for another project called Cassava, which was essentially a a play to earn marketing project, which essentially helped companies in emerging markets convert their Web2 users to Web3 with incentivization.
Wow. Okay, you've been busy.
Yeah. Yeah, I have. Afterwards, yes, I have. And then afterwards, about 3 years ago, I started Mansa. And essentially at Mansa, what we do is our slogan says transform the way that money moves. But in order to understand how we transform the way money moves, I think it's very important to take a step back and look at the context of international payments the way it is right now. So if you want to do a transaction between, let's say, Europe, London to New York, it usually goes through instantly. Fees are, let's say, like a few dollars. But once you turn it around and you do London, Nigeria, it can take all the way to 3 to 5 days. Fees can go as high as essentially like 10%. And the reason why that is because of correspondent banking and essentially the lack of liquidity that you have in all these emerging markets. So what Mansa does is we work with some of the largest payment companies in the world, and we help pre-fund their payments to make sure that they have always on capital in all the different markets that they wish to serve. So that whenever somebody wants to send a transaction between London to Nigeria, they can instantly settle that transaction. To date, we've done over $400 million in payments across Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia.
Wow. Wow. That is that feels like it brings a real tangible benefit to those corridors to completely, yeah, transform the speed and the possibility of doing business across borders. Um what is what is behind that you kind of described it as always on liquidity if I got it right, but like how do
Correct.
you actually make that happen without giving away your secrets?
Yeah. So the way, so okay, so it's like two things, right? So number one, it's about having the necessary rails, and number two, it's also about having the necessary capital because people don't understand that payments is actually a capital game. If I give you $1 here, and with the expectation that you will give me $1 there, I actually need to have the other dollar on the other side. If I don't have the dollar on the like other side, that's when the fees go up, and like that's when like the time it takes to like reach there essentially like increases as well. So for the past like 20 years, the notion of instant payments is just me as Western Union keeping money in Sri Lanka. So whenever somebody wants to send money to Sri Lanka, I just take it from the money that I have essentially there. So my British pounds, for example, never leave the UK, and my Sri Lankan like rupees stay essentially in Sri Lanka. So like what we do is essentially we have developed the necessary infrastructure whereby we keep the funds in stablecoins. We have a very large balance sheet. We've actually just closed $100 million credit facility from a very large British-based asset manager, and essentially this enables us to keep our funds in stablecoins and go into the various currencies that we want instantly. Um, ZOF, ZAF, pesos, Filipino pesos, you name it.
Wow. Okay, that's such an interesting problem. And I like the way you describe payments as being a capital problem. That's not how you usually hear it. Um, and is there a specific reason why you've chosen the corridors that you have? Yeah, what was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, for sure. Like I think it's like twofold, right? If you look at like for example, like I'm in India right now. India like as a market for me is incredibly interesting because it has $100 billion of remittance that's sent to it like on a yearly basis. The African continent has $60 billion. Like Latin America has another $100 billion. But these are the places that rely on remittance the most but are charged the highest fees. So if you are like according like to the World Bank, it costs 10% to send money to the African continent, 5% to Southeast Asia, and then 7% to like Latin America. So if you just calculate that's hundreds of millions of dollars to billions of dollars in fees that people are getting charged for transactions that take a week to settle. For example, I sent a transaction from my bank account in Dubai to Indonesia. It got lost. Nobody could tell me where the transaction went. So it's an incredibly painful experience that people are paying top dollar for not the best service. So essentially, this is where we identified the most friction, and this is why we chose to focus on these markets.
That makes a lot of sense. There's so much room for efficiency improvement, user experience improvement, as well as financial gain. And your example kind of brings that to light. That's it's kind of terrifying when money gets lost. It's like,
It
where
has.
is this thing? Do you think actually that the technology, the rails that you can use with stablecoins can also improve that visibility and tracing as well?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Because like I think if because the the nature of stable coins enables money to move instantly. Now, and like I feel like the real juice here is the interoperability between stable coins and fiat. Like especially like if you can have it be interoperable like between local essentially payment systems. And if you look at the markets where we operate, a lot of the local payments are actually instant. Like for example, like if we were to do a like transaction to India, if I had stable coins, I could go from stable coins to like rupees, and then once I'm in the Indian banking system, I can use UPI, for example. That's an instant
Yeah,
transaction. In
yeah.
Brazil, I can use Pix. Like when I'm
Mhm,
in Kenya, I can use M-Pesa, or like even
mhm.
like when I'm in like when I'm in China, like I can use WeChat. So like when you're able, so if you look at like a lot of these markets, the domestic market is actually incredibly efficient, and I would say much more digitally native first than when you look at it when you look at the West. For example, 90% of Kenya's economy passes through M-Pesa. So like in Kenya, if you try to pay with cash, people don't accept it. But in places like the UK or essentially the like US, it's still a very cash first dominated economies, right? And the like biggest bottleneck that you always have is getting money in and getting money out. So like stable coins with the speed really solve that, right? So now it's all about creating that interoperability between the local fiat systems, stable coins, and then the origin or the like destination where you'd like to go.
Yeah, yeah, that's super interesting. It's not one or the other. It's these things working together. And yeah, this point
Yeah, for
around
example,
actually, yeah,
I'll give you like an example. So like currently right now, like at the moment, we're actually helping MoneyGram go from pounds to ZOF. And the way that we do
okay.
it is pound is GPV, USDT, ZOF.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
like and like this is what people like refer to like as quote unquote the like stablecoin sandwich.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that does make sense. And you mentioned USDT. You're actually backed by Tether, and has that partnership kind of helped you form that sandwich and make that flow work?
Yeah, I think Tether have been an amazing partner, and it's just like beyond just capital, right? Like I think
Hmm.
just guidance, first and foremost. And I think like number two is also just like introductions to like a lot of the biggest companies that we've been like working with, because like they're connected to some of the biggest companies in the world that want to start like using stablecoins, for example, right? So
Yeah,
like they've been really really helpful in guiding us and like making really great like introductions and like just being there for us. So like they're more than just an investor. We're actually in a partnership together. And I
that's
think
nice.
that we both have common goals, as in we want to make payments more efficient in emerging markets.
Hmm. Hmm. That's really good. That's really good. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, when when you're describing this feels so obvious. It's like, okay, there's so many benefits. It helps cross-border trade, especially with emerging markets. What stops companies? Let's say you approach a company. What stops them from transitioning from the traditional way of doing things to switching to, let's say, this USDT sandwich or similar?
Yeah, and like I would also like to make a disclaimer, right? I think a lot of people think that stablecoins are just one magic bullet. It's not, right? Like
Okay.
stablecoins
Yeah.
alone just aren't enough. Like you need to have the necessary infrastructure like behind that, right? So like as I've mentioned, it's a lot about the interoperability as well, right? So like as a payment company, and especially if you're a payment company that does billions of dollars in annual volume, you kind of already have a pretty good infrastructure, and like your payments already, right, like go like pretty much like instant, right? So like in order for to convince them to like adopt stablecoins, like it really needs to move the needle. And like for it to really like move the needle, like they must be able to seamlessly transact tens of millions of dollars between on-chain fiat and back and forth. And in order like to do that, number one, you need liquidity. Number two, like you need the like, infrastructure. And number three, what people like don't like often miss, it's also a compliance game. If you're in financial services, you're basically in compliance, right? So like there's a lot of like AML and like KYB and like KYC like considerations to be taken like into like account as well. So like not only like must you make it like a smooth interoperable infrastructure, but at the same time like you must ensure that it's compliant as well, like because one tainted stablecoin can ruin your entire treasury.
That's a really interesting point as well. How do you balance that compliance side with the inherent speed that you get
I'm fighting with
with
my compliance team every day, trust me.
folks?
You have
Don't
no
fight with your
idea. Trust
compliance
me.
team.
Trust me. It's the cost of battle. But yeah, but like like at Mansa, like we take compliance like incredibly serious, right? And
Good,
and
good.
and and
Yeah,
and and like we make sure that that we do it in a way where like whereby like you need to identify all the different risks, right?
yeah,
And like you also like need to, it's not only about identifying risk, but it's also about monitoring and tracking the transactions. And then also because like we deal in financial services, as in I am settling transactions for companies that are settling transactions on behalf of their clients. So there's so many different parties involved. So like you like must make sure that like everybody like that my clients also have a strict compliance program, and that like whatever like we do and what they do like vice versa matches up with that.
yeah, yeah. I think y y it's so easily overlooked, especially when you have
Uh,
technology that can run at a million miles an hour. Uh, but I think to stop, pause, I mean, not to pause, but to take that compliance side into account from the start, as you say, that can also be your advantage kind of going forward. As you say, you don't want that single tainted stable coin to ruin everything. Um, for sure not. Um, you started Manza kind of before the, how do I put this? Before the hype
before
cycle,
the hype, before
stable
the hype.
coins
Yeah,
kicked
before the
off.
hype. I
Yeah,
remember, right? Like there's so many VCs, and like I don't want to call out call out names right now, right? There's so
Hmm.
many VCs and like some of the biggest like in the world, and especially the guys that talk the loudest right now about the stablecoin super cycle. Literally like 18 months ago, I had conversations like with them. They're like, "How do you exit? How do I make a token out of this? It just doesn't make sense, right?" And they are the loudest people right now, giving all the interviews. They'll be like, "Oh, stable coins, like we saw it, why like so like so on and so forth," right? Now, the reason why I particularly like myself like identified this opportunity is because I personally like lived through it. So I actually have I have a vendetta against Western Union because like I went to college in Hong Kong, and like my parents would always send me money to like Western Union, and I would be always so giddy happy walking to Western Union thinking I would get X. Whenever I go to Western Union, I get Y, and it's because of all the fees that they're taking and the effects, you know, and like I'm not always the most punctual guy, so I would arrive to Western Union 1 minute late, literally 1 minute late, or 1 minute before official closing time, and they tell me, "Oh, sorry, the systems are like off now, like I can't give you your money." And I was like, and I was like, "Damn!" Right? So so ever since college, I've always thought it is very confusing that money is limited is so constrained by essentially banking hours and like working hours like whilst it should be like data, right? Like so data moves like 24/7, right? Like I could send you a text message at like any time, and like
Yeah.
people see it as text but actually lines of code, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
actually data, right? And then
Yeah.
that's the same thing like with stable coins as well. It's like lines of
Hmm.
code, right? So like when you put it like together, right, it made so much sense to me, but it was just so difficult, like to be completely honest, at the beginning to like because also like what we're doing is quite innovative as well. So it was
Hmm.
incredibly difficult at the beginning to number one, find our first fintechs because like at that
Yeah.
time, because like at that point, stablecoins weren't cool at all. Right? Like I started building Mansa at the depth of the bear market after FTX, where people wanted nothing to do with crypto, right?
Hmm.
All the
Hmm.
biggest payment companies wanted nothing to do with it, right? So it took me a while to convince payment companies to like work with
Yeah.
us, and then it took me like even longer to find the necessary capital so like we could facilitate the payments, and then it took me even longer than that as well to like raise funds for it, right? It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I think like before we raised from Tether, like I think we got 100 rejections, like to be completely honest,
Oof.
like frankly
Yeah.
speaking with you, right?
Yeah.
But like having lived through that personal experience myself, I knew that there was a market for it,
Yeah.
and like I knew that like there was a solution, right? Like to be made. So like we just like persevered, and like I would like to note that like Mansa like is not just me. Like I have a wonderful like co-founder called Inkuru. She was previously at Swift, and like we have a wonderful team of like 25 like other people like that have made this vision a reality.
Hmm. Um, it it is always seems to be the case that companies with a mission are always founded around that the founders' problems, and it sounds like you and Inkuru have kind of seen the problem from potentially two different lenses as well, with our experience at Swift. Um, but yeah, the money as code and like the money, like I find that a very very interesting kind of like progression that the world seems to be going through. Is had this scenario where we've essentially had like a digital replica of like fiat money, but now in stablecoins we have an inherently like which is literally created in the form of
No,
code
for
first.
sure.
Yeah.
But then, right? Like, I mean, like, if you think about it, like, I'm sure living in the UK, you have a Revolut account, right? What is technically like, I like, I don't see a difference to be honest between the funds that you have in your Revolut account and my stablecoins. The
Okay.
only difference is that
Mhm.
your funds in your Revolut account are siloed.
Well,
Like
yes,
they're
exactly,
siloed. Like you can
exactly.
only send it to other. I mean, like you can only right like send it like within the like UK or to other like right like Revolut
Yeah,
essentially like users, right?
yeah,
So but the
yeah,
stable coins are essentially a global version of that, right? So like
yeah.
that's the way like I like think about it, and like the people like always ask right into how we can size up the market opportunity for stablecoins. Like, and I think, right, like we like already have the answers, because if you look at like emerging markets where stablecoins have like grown the most, they have thriving mobile money markets, M-Pesa,
Hmm. Hmm.
Grab, Nubank, so on and so forth, right? So like
Yeah.
I think that stablecoins actually have a marketing problem. I don't think they should be called stablecoins because it's quite confusing. I think it should be called digital dollars, because there's no difference between the money that I have in my crypto wallet between what you have in your Venmo, or what somebody else has like in their like Revolut, for example.
Mhm. That's a really interesting perspective. Yeah, that's the digital dollar. I guess it kind of makes sense as well. Yeah, I mean that's what they're pegged to the dollar. So, you mentioned a minute ago that it was very hard to win your first fintechs, your first customers. How did you do that? As you said, in the depths of the crypto kind of bear market, when no one wanted to touch this stuff, when maybe
A
even
lot
many
of
companies didn't
persistence.
even know the word stable coins. Yeah, persistence.
A lot of persistence. No, like honestly, it's like I guess it just comes from like both in Cruz and I never say never say die attitude that we have. And I think, like what really helped as well is that like I knew like a lot of fintechs from my previous life, like a lot of people like that I had invested in, that the fund had invested in, and like people like that I'd become like very friendly with as well. So like I
Yeah,
guess like they were very kind to like give us a chance,
yeah.
and like give us the like opportunity to like essentially like grow with them, right? Because what Mansa is today is very, very different from what Mansa was like when we first launched, like August like
Mm,
24. And like all of
yeah,
that is like a big testament to, the clients and the users, right? Like that we have.
yeah, yeah. Has anything surprised you in the 3 year journey? Like, has there been like one big surprise for you in your building of Manza?
Yeah, like I think, to be completely honest, the biggest, I would say, okay, I think the biggest surprise that I have is, I guess, just how quickly just stablecoins just have become like so popular, right? And like how everybody right now just seems to be like embracing it, right? Like, and I think regulation as well. I think, at some point I genuinely thought that crypto was going to be banned in like many key markets right now. And I think the like Genius Act coming up, it has opened a lot of like regulatory like clarity. I think the other biggest surprise like I have like going Mansa is, like, to be completely honest, I always have very high expectations, but like I never thought like we would grow as fast as like we have grown. So like that has surprised me. But I guess it's like that's what happens like when you build something that people want. Right?
Hmm. Yeah, they try and get off you
Yeah, sure,
faster than you expected. No, that's
sure.
amazing. That's a great surprise to have. What's next, Mouloukou, for Manza? What are you kind of looking at over the next year?
Like I think like for us is working with more payment companies, being useful to those payment companies, making their lives easier, and releasing services which make transactions go faster, smoother, and simpler as well. Because like if you think about it right now, most payment companies literally just like UI. Everything else in the back end, you have like five different like providers that are involved in one single transaction. And having so many providers being involved in one single transaction adds so much friction and adds a lot of fees, because everybody like wants to add their margin, right? Somebody adds 10 bips here, 5 bips there, 10 bips there, 5 bips there. And then like this is why like you find, right, like all these like transactions like becoming costlier and like slower. So like I think like in the next year, we will like release products, right? Like that help our payment companies settle their transactions faster, and then essentially also help them like enter new markets.
That's amazing. Yeah, that would be very useful, I'm sure, for a lot of companies. Well, look, thank you so much. I know it
Thank you
hasn't
so much.
been the easiest time to schedule a podcast, but you've been very kind, generous with your time. Super grateful. It's an awesome story, and hopefully we can even share more at some point when things are a little bit calmer around us.
For sure. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for having me. It's like actually been a very delightful conversation. So I really appreciate the time. I also really appreciate the thoughtful questions. Like it seemed that you really took your time and like you like thought about this. So thank you so much, and I really look forward to like coming back soon.
wicked. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Cheers.
Thank you.